I am good.
Okay. Good afternoon. It's Senate Institutions. It's Friday, February 10th. We have a governor's appointment. We have the honor of having Jaira Swift Billings in with us today. He has been appointed for the Capitol Complex Commission member. And it sounds like he's been there for a little bit. But Mr. Jaira, welcome to Senate Institutions.
Welcome to all of you as well.
So tell us what the Capitol Complex Commission does.
Well, the way I usually explain it to people is that you need a zoning board around the area that contains the Capitol. And so the commission functions as a zoning board.
And so there's been some plans to sell some properties around the complex, and would some of those decisions have come to you for your nod or not?
Yes, different things over the years we've looked at renovations and all kinds of lighting and infrastructure issues and things like that.
And how big is your board?
The board, I think there are 5 on it now. It seems like it hasn't been very, we haven't had a lot of meetings in the last couple of years.
Yep. And who's the chair of that committee, or what's the makeup? What's the structure of that committee?
Heather Schuldeist is the chair. And I guess I've been with her as long as I've been a member. And we meet periodically whenever something comes up. David Sheets has always been very helpful with presenting information to us. And the Vermont Historical Society and people around historic preservation have all been very helpful to just keep us informed of the things that we need to know to try to make the right decision. And I think, as a personal note, because my history of the Capitol goes back to when my father was Speaker, I have fond memories of that building, and I feel very protective of the area.
Yep. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Jaira, I also noticed that you're quite prominent. I mean, the name Billings and Woodstock seem to me rather synonymous. And you were on the Woodstock Historical Society for a long time, and that probably put you in pretty good stead to join this Capitol Complex Commission, right?
It did, and the nicest thing about that committee was that was one of the only committees that I was on with my dad for quite a few years, and it was really a nice thing for me.
How long was your dad in the legislature?
Mostly in the 60s. I think, I don't know, it was about 5 to 6 years, and then he had to make the decision as to whether or not to run for governor, or as it was, get taken out and go to the court system.
Okay. And he was Speaker, huh?
Yeah, back in the 60s during reapportionment. Actually, it was a kind of a nice time in the legislature because we had the first Democratic governor, Phil Hoff, who I have fond memories of from my childhood. And the way my dad and Phil worked together showed me that we need to try to have Vermont be an example to the rest of the country that we can go and we can have the Democrats and Republicans working together and not doing all of this sort of locking horns on all these issues.
Well, I think this building's a pretty good example of that.
It
we
is.
certainly don't look to Washington for guidance or example. The people in this building, even though we may disagree on ways to get to certain areas, we're civil. We enjoy being with each other, and it's always a nice thing. Talk a little bit, if you could, about, because 1965 was when the U.S. Supreme Court told Vermont if they didn't reapportion, they would do it for them. And I know there were some very emotionally charged speeches that were made on the floor as people literally voted themselves out of office because they had to go from 246 members down to 150. And yeah, and Senator Mazza's dad, maybe they knew each other.
My father was served in
Oh, yeah.
from 1960 to 72. So he went through the reapportionment, like you said. It was very interesting. They had to do it with their own seats.
Wow.
And it was, I remember it was Phil Hoff. myself, myself and a bunch of local guys got together and we bought an old school bus and we painted it the Halfway Express. He was trying to figure out how to call it the Halfway Express. And we campaigned all over Chittenden County with it. We had a great time. But yeah, the house, that's a big decision, going from 246 to 150. A lot of people lost their, that was a tough battle.
And your dad was right in the middle of it, right?
Yeah, and I remember I was about 10 years old then, so I can't say that my mind is completely accurate, and I probably romanticize it somewhat. But my brother and I were allowed to sort of be just behind the curtain of the podium, and we would be allowed to be there for long periods of time, and it was really a nice memory. But I do remember it being very emotionally charged.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I remember my dad talking about it. Oh my God, it was tough. Yeah, it was. Yeah, you can imagine go cut 100 members almost of the body. It was a tough one.
And towns got cut, right? 'Cause
Sure,
it wasn't per
sure,
town
sure,
anymore,
yeah.
it was per district. Wow.
Yeah, it was a big deal.
But if you think about it, if I lived in Burlington and someone I knew lived in Island Pond or,
Same representation.
yeah, you had one.
Oh, I did see the logic. It
Yeah.
just was
Yeah.
brutal,
Yeah.
I'm sure, going through that.
Does the sergeant of arms serve on that committee, or the chief of police that you're aware of?
No,
No, so it's just you members.
yeah.
What is the Capitol complex? I should know this. We've been told. What does it involve? How many? Where's the boundaries of the Capitol complex? That goes from this street to.
Yeah, it's the area around the Capitol and Baldwin and just out to the Supreme Court building, and there's I think in that brochure you have there that it has a pretty well defined area that's shown. And I think that also the other thing is there's always been a little bit of trouble between the city and the Capitol complex area, and the city over the years sometimes decides to make decisions without involving the committee. And I think at least at the time that I've been on there, Heather Schuldice has been very, very good at keeping that all on track.
How long of a term is this?
I think it's a 3-year term. I've had several. I can't remember exactly. And we had a little snafu in the appointments, I think, during the COVID period.
Yeah, we have a little bit. We've got some double appointments and just some stuff. So glad that we're not trying to confirm you twice here. So yeah, so we've been going through our list to make sure we're not putting you through undue pressures here.
I know it's big pay. I'm sure you do it for the money.
I do like coming up to Montpelier once in a while, because I get pretty wound up in the store and it takes most of the time. But
So David Sheets talked to us a couple days ago now about potentially expanding out in, I guess what's called the courtyard here. Your commission will be part of that, I assume, right?
yes.
Okay. So in what manner would you be the final arbiter of what gets constructed, or is it a step along the process? How does that work?
I think it's a step along the process. I mean, we would recommend one thing or another, and we would vote. And I'm not sure if the governor can overrule that, or if your committee can overrule that. I really don't know we've never really had any issues that have come to a head like that. But I do think that it's important to have, having a few lay people on a group that's looking at what's happening there. So I don't feel that I'm political in my decisions one way or the other about it. I feel that people such as myself can look at the whole area and try to make the best decisions to carry it forward to the next generation.
So you enjoy running a general store in a small community?
It's my great grandfather Gillingham, 137 years this year, and I'm pleased to announce to this group and others that I've just purchased all the stock of the business from my siblings. So now, as F.H. Gillingham was my great grandfather, I'm the sole owner, which feels pretty good. My brother's going to keep working with me.
Yeah.
But
So I guess that answers the question whether you like it or not.
yeah, it's a passion.
General store, I have a store, but I used to be a general store, but now the area's changed. But you still carry a lot of supplies, like farm supplies and things like that, or?
More and more that's gone out, but
Yeah.
let me ask you a question. Didn't you serve on a board with Millie Bushnell, who was the manager of Gillingham's years ago?
No, not me. I don't think so.
No, okay.
I mean, your dad did.
Maybe your dad.
Maybe she did. Yeah, I don't know. I could have been. Yeah,
Um,
I've heard of your store. I gotta go see it someday. So what do you carry? Is it a grocery?
well, it groceries is still 60% of the business, but
Yeah.
it's houseware, hardware, groceries, wine, clothing,
Yeah,
toys.
that's you don't see those around Vermont anymore these days. But,
No, and you know what I say? I mean, we are kind of one of the oldest, certainly one of the oldest run by the same family stores. And I think that when you go around Vermont and you look at the various general stores in various communities, you can see that each store has evolved with the community. And I
yeah,
think
yeah.
the brilliance of my ancestors was to keep the store adapting. And I remember what a fight it was with my mother's generation when we lost hardware. We had an Ace and a True Value on either side of the town, and it didn't make any sense. And Woodstock was becoming more than 50% owned by out-of-state addresses. And so it was a changing community. But I mean, that's the same kind of thing that what you're dealing with in when you think of the changes from the 60s to now.
Yeah, we opened ours in 1954.
Yeah,
And my dad started, we sold ammunition, and I used to sell guns, and we sell a lot of fishing tackle and all that. And that, of course, that's gone now with all the other stores in the neighborhood. There's hardware stores and everything, but it was quite a difference. Like you say, you're even bigger, I suppose. It was a general store. That's why we still call it general store, but it's no longer general. I carry groceries and all beer, wine, deli.
Yeah.
It's changed. Yeah.
So my mental image is a potbelly stove and
Yeah.
a whole bunch of people sitting around it, kind of chewing the cud, what's going on in town. Is that an accurate description of what you're at, or not?
Well, I think that Rest Orton tried to, get that drilled into everybody's minds when he did. And I love the thought process and everything that went on between my mother and Rest Orton over the years. It was a kind of a rivalry that was very funny. But I think that we sometimes get criticized as being a little bit more slick than what people would see as a Vermont general store. But I think it's a reflection of the community.
Yeah.
And Woodstock's whatever it is, and we try to serve the community as best we can and keep the store healthy.
Oh, I bet you fit in nicely in Woodstock. I think so.
It's a small community.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that.
So do we have any more questions?
Just a comment.
Yeah.
I mean, your personal history and your work experience, I mean, you just being a developer and knowing about water. I mean, it sounds like you're a perfect member of this committee, that you have a lot to bring. So thank you for your service. No, thank you.
You're welcome, and I enjoy it.
Yeah, well, we had the sheets in yesterday, and I can see that you're probably from the same character as he is. And I know myself, I really don't have much of a problem of making sure that you're still part of this commission. So I think that if the committee, do you have any questions for us, Jaira?
Well, I'll just comment that I think as we move forward with the reorganization of the front lawn and the front of the Supreme Court building, I think we all should be very careful and thoughtful and share information of how it evolves. Because I think that the whole front of the Capitol is so beautiful, and maybe I'm biased because I've seen it for so many years of my life, but I have a hard time seeing it change much. But I know that, as with my store, we need to adapt with the community, and we need to go in a few different directions to make it pedestrian friendlier and things like that.
So we're looking at selling the Baldwin's building and then I think it's 133 State Street that's across from the Capitol complex, but still part of the complex. And any thoughts on those buildings as far as moving forward?
I think that they're super important buildings in terms of the visual of the front there. And I think that, we just have to take it issue by issue as it comes along. And I'm convinced with the other people that I've worked with during the time that I've been in the commission that we'll come to the right decisions.
Actually, let me follow up on that. That's a really good question. Are those buildings preserved or historic buildings, especially with local designation? Do you know, because that's one way to at least slow down any harm to them, any major changes.
I mean, I would think that the district is on the National Register, but that's never come up in my mind.
Yeah, we should ask somebody about that, because even being on the register doesn't really provide protection to the buildings. It does make you eligible for financial help and grants, but it doesn't really actually protect the building itself. It's just local designation that does that. We talked about that the other day.
Yep.
So that's something, I'm glad you brought that up.
Well, and the other thing about that issue is that I think there's been different ideas over the years of disbanding the commission, but I think that it's a good protection to have that other layer in such an important group of buildings.
Yeah, I don't think it hurts to have some thoughtfulness, right? And just to have some difference of opinions. And so, again, I mean, you're out of the area, but certainly a lot in a community that values historic nature, and to be able to have some thoughtfulness and some decision making before sometimes the business is business, but to have thoughtfulness of a historic nature, I think is very helpful to keeping traditions alive.
Yeah, and I also think that I like to joke with people that my zoning experience really comes from Woodstock, not by being on the zoning board, but by just being part of this community. That I remember when I was really young, when the zoning started really tightening up in Woodstock, and there's a lot of pros and cons to it. Most of the people that are upset with it are generally people that have moved here. So I say, if you don't like it, don't move here. And I'll say that about Vermont in general.
You don't have anything to do with the inside of the buildings, do you?
No. But the infrastructure stuff is sometimes tough, and I would err towards safety and towards improving the infrastructure issues that come up that do affect the outside. But I think that all the discussions that have happened during the various times that I've seen these happen, that we come to a very good compromise as to how to make the lights look, or how to make the air conditioning units look, or the generator look, or how those things which we must have, and we just have to try to keep them out of sight and not being something that affects the visual of the front.
Great.
What else? Anything else? Yeah, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, I was late.
Yeah.
Did you already talk about how often your group meets and what your current projects are?
We meet very irregularly. It's whenever projects generally stack up, and then I guess between David Sheets and Heather, they try to make sure that we're looking down the road a few months and seeing that we're not being ridiculous in terms of having too many meetings, and it ends up being 1 or 2 meetings a year usually.
Thanks.
Okay.
Well, good. Anything else? Anything else for us, sir?
No, I've enjoyed it, and I appreciate being part.
Thank you.
Well,
Thank
thank you
you.
very much. We appreciate you coming in today, and I don't think you'll have much of a problem here. And but appreciate what you do, and appreciate that extra layer of protections against, just making sure that we're not doing the right thing. So thank you for what you do.
Thank you all.
Yeah,
Thanks.
Enjoy that store.
Yeah, come visit Woodstock. Let me know.
Yeah.
We will. We will.
Okay, goodbye.
You folks-
Bye, thank you.
You folks have any general store in your areas or that are?
Jericho has one. Jericho still has a good one, right around the green there, the old
Yeah,
green.
that's right. 'Cause
Yeah,
They
excellent.
faded away over the years, like some
Lovely.
small towns still have
And
them.
now they're
but,
fine.
They were all over, they were every street corner years ago, you know, and we have a big store, big store, meet everybody up. It's,
Well, Linda raised a question about whether we should vote on that. I'm just thinking that we probably should vote on that, just be done with that
Do we vote on camera or off? How does that work?
no, we'll do it on camera, yeah, absolutely. So I'll have,
I will be, get the, reappointment of, Bill.
Gyros.
Jarvis, yeah, Jarvis Swift Buildings, so we have a motion to move that, and do we have a second? So move.
Okay, just
And
call one more second. and he-
yeah, then I'll have Senator Renner call the roll when she's ready.
Okay, Senator Collmore,
Yes.
Senator Harrison,
Yes.
Senator Mazza.
Yes.
Senator Renner, yes.
And
Senator Ingalls.
yes,
He's gonna be a tough one to follow.
The vote carries.
And do you need to appoint someone to report this?
I don't think we. Well, you have to have a name to it. but
Yeah.
They don't report it.
I'll put my name on it.
yeah, we'll
Okay.
put Senator Renner's on it, so that being the.
What else?
You will need to take this up.
I'll take it up to, okay, great. Yeah, thank
That's
you.
the original.
Thank you.
Go straight there.
Well, the history
Now
of,
Pascal.
the history of the buildings in Woodstock is,
Oh, yeah, they have a horse
Take
farm.
this and make
yeah,
it
we'd like to
come
ask some more questions about that, but it kind
Actually,
of
it's
gets out of that.
the Billings estate.
Yeah, it kind of gets out of the
Yeah,
flavor of what we were doing
it
here,
was
but,
Rockefeller's.
yeah,
Saved
it was
It's
John
huge.
Howard.
Yeah.
no, I, doing that next week, so just hang on to it.
Yeah, that was really cool to meet him, actually.
Yeah.
And there will be one other person next
There's
week.
no penny candy there.
No, no, those days are gone. Wow. Man, he was a penny, now a quarter.
Yeah.
I used to sell tons of penny candy, oh my gosh. Two for a penny too. Need that.
Yeah.
Need that for two
Thank
for
you.
a penny.
We have a great hardware store that has wood floors and
Oh, yeah, right.
bins of
Okay.
different kinds of, different
Sure.
sizes, screws, and drawers.
The old fashioned.
Yes, it's wonderful.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is it at the
It's-
change? Like
It's become part of a True Value
True
thing,
Value,
but,
yeah.
but
That's what they buy
everyone
the
treats it.
supplies, yeah.
as the same.
Okay, now.
And the
Here,
town
you want this one too?
supports it.
Does this go with it? Do you have a copy of this?
That's parking. It's right downtown, so there's not a lot of parking, but the
Well, that's
community supports it.
Keeps it going.
There was a Home Depot that moved in, and people didn't go to the Home Depot, they went to the hardware store instead.
Yeah, if you don't change, say, like you said, if you don't change, you don't stay in business.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a whole
On farm.
things that I saw years ago, like I couldn't survive today, it's gotta be more stuff for me, salads,
Yeah,
sandwiches.
well, your pies are really good.
People, they just like that change, get to do it. Boy, that's right.
Okay, so we're gonna do, so because of seniority, we gave Senator Mazza, Senator Collmore their sections first. So let's go, so, I'm gonna let you two, I don't care what sections I have, but let me go through the sections that have been spoken for.
Okay.
So 2, 3, 4, 6, 11, 12, 13, 14, 16, and 17.
Okay.
So that should be 10 sections.
Okay.
So let's just take our time with that. So we have a bear of a section on section 1.
I think we should do that last. I think we should start from the end.
And I don't, now listen, and I just wanna, I don't have, yeah, we can split it, or I can do it, or whatever, so let's go, so the next section that we have would be, we have, So section 5. yeah, so I'll do section,
I would like to do that. You want me to
I'll
do
do
that? Or when did you want to do that?
I'll do section 1, that's a big one, and I'll do section 1, so Russ is,
Thank you, Russ.
yeah. So Russ is section 1. So let's go right here. This is Russ. Then we have, let me just go, housekeeping 2 is Brian. Then we have 3 is Senator Mazza, so Nick is number 3.
4 is.
And 4 is Brian. Yeah, you said 5, so.
Yeah, I mean, I actually did a barn preservation grant, but,
So,
I like, it does kind of go with economic development, which is my other committee.
yeah, you like it? You want that one then? Okay, then let me
If
put
you're
you,
cool with
let me
that.
do 2 things right here. Harrison. Senator Renner.
And do you want me to do 7 and 8 then? Because it's,
I'll do whatever, listen,
College
this is
stuff?
your show as far as that, so.
I don't know, it's all.
So
7 is
Wendy's
college,
gonna
8 is
do
college.
5. And then 6 is Brian.
Excuse me, we might wanna talk to state colleges, because when I got home the other night, there was a big TV thing about, they threw out the libraries.
Yeah.
Yeah, we might wanna bring them back in there a little bit.
That is a
Definitely
question
wanna-
asked.
Yeah,
And I wasn't aware of it, none of us were aware of it, then we get home that night, it's on TV that the athletic program has been cut, not that it's good or bad, but we should know that.
Yeah, we should. We should know more.
For
sure. Oh, yeah.
I was shocked, they must have left here saying, wow, we got away with this.
Yeah,
We didn't, we
We were enthralled with all everything else they told us.
I know, I was impressed and all of a
we're,
sudden.
we're kind of in a love fest a little bit there, so.
And then I go to the news and it
I
said,
know.
you know, they cut the, I mean,
especially the libraries. I mean, I know
Yeah.
athletics are important. too,
There's a good
but the
argument.
libraries.
both sides, I'm sure, but we should know that.
Yeah, we should go through that with them.
So that's in section 8, right?
Yeah, so 7 and 8, Senator Renner, is that?
I don't want to take the college ones.
You do or don't?
Yeah, that's fine. I don't
Okay,
mind doing
okay,
that.
you're fine with that one?
Yeah.
Okay, so then
7
we've
and
got,
8, you're doing both.
okay,
right?
so
Yeah,
then we
why not?
have 9. Well, hold on a second, let me catch up. We got, Irene.
You'll have background information on all this stuff.
Yeah, yeah, we get more.
Draft person, draft.
Okay, so section 9, we do, is that available? So 9's available, so who's, natural resources, who thinks they're strong with that? I'm good,
Oh, okay, I
but-
like the stormwater part. but-
Okay.
But the wildlife part, I'm not as educated on, but if you wanna do it,
no, it doesn't matter to
like
me.
actually the water part.
And you said
I
like
would like
10?
better.
You think
number
10, Wendy?
Yeah.
You wanna do
Well,
10?
Water, yeah, that's, I guess.
Okay,
that
hold
is
on, let me
water
get you over
resources.
here. So you're 10 on the water part, and I'm gonna put
By
you
the
right
time we
here.
get down to this, you'll understand every inch of it, because we still got a long way to go.
We do. But as, actually, to be fair, Eric, you know, him and I were talking the other day at one of our meetings, and he said, it's like, well, you know, listen, once we assign these, then we can, as long as I know about it, that you're gonna meet with somebody. If you need some more, you know, some more knowledge about it, you just can huddle with them, and you can, outside a committee, if, you know, if they can find the time for you, which I'm sure they will, dial it in a little closer. So-
Who's Eric? Oh, that one?
Yeah. So what did we decide on 9? Cause I don't, it's,
We'll let you do that,
Okay,
right?
so I'm gonna do
Right,
section
we're gonna let you
nine.
do that. Thank you for,
no
that's a
problem,
lot of.
no
different
problem.
things. So 15's the next one.
Okay, so then we have,
Who's
is
doing
that what it is?
military?
11,
That's
12,
our take.
Right. I was just
13,
writing
14, so we have section 15.
Well,
Oh, let me get caught up. So section 11 is Dick. Section 12 is Dick. 13 is Brian. 14 is Dick. 15 is, okay, that's open. So
Yeah.
who's,
I would do that just because again, it fits in with the economic development, if that works, unless.
so, you know, I'm absolutely positively. 16 is Brian. 17 is Dick.
Really just one section.
Yeah, really is 18. Yeah, it'd be 18, so, okay, are you good with that one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Would be the garage lady.
I'll be the
Oh, boy.
garage
All
lady.
right. 18,
And then what about the bonds? I don't,
I think that's sort of like a subtotal of.
yeah, that's just kind of a
That's just a
subtotal.
that's
Yeah.
placeholder, okay, so we don't have, really have a 19,
Is
so that's it.
Irene, okay,
So we don't really have a 19. Okay.
no, okay, so everybody happy with that?
Yeah. Yeah, if you guys are okay with that, it looks like you guys took on more sections than Wendy and I have, but.
Well, that's fine, it's, yeah, absolutely positively, we'll be fine with that,
Fair.
so.
So Russ, you have two really big ones,
Yeah,
right?
that'd
You're
be
1 and
fine,
9.
right? We've done them before and all of that, so.
Good to know.
So who got stuck with BGS?
I did.
Use it.
So be ready for some cuts. That's way too long, way too long.
Let's look at the salaries.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
You don't have the salaries anymore. You finally got rid of them.
Yeah, we're taking it back.
So, Eric Milcorn, anything you'd like to add to any of that stuff? Any,
No, well, I didn't get your preamble, but just, this is the way they do the big bill too, that there's always kind of a liaison to every section, and spending a little bit of time offline with the folks who are from who represent the respective sessions, both before it hits here and before your floor presentation, I think will just make everybody look a lot smarter and reduce confusion across the board. So I think it's a really good
And a lot of
way
these
to-
will change as we go.
Yeah.
Go to committee conference or we get before the end. But, that's, nothing ever stays the way it is.
No, and all the folks from all of the agencies, departments know what's going on there. So, just to have someone on the team who's really smart about each section when questions come.
Tell your commissioner, your secretary, yesterday, she was right about that lady from Maine, made a great presentation.
Isn't she
Oh my
amazing?
An hour and a half,
Oh,
she
you went.
went an hour and a half, you would have thought it was that.
In this committee, that's,
It was very
well,
compelling.
what's kind of funny is that she first came, she thought she was coming to a committee that she'd already reported to.
Right,
She thought she was gonna answer some
house.
questions, so she didn't really have a presentation. I was like,
Yeah.
I was looking at the clock and, oh my God, we got an hour and 15 minutes. We're gonna have to try to
She
fill
said-
that up. And then she just took off.
She said, what are your questions?
wait, what are we talking about?
She got one in the House committee again.
Yeah.
But once she got on her own, she was very, very well versed on the subject. Even a lot of it doesn't pertain to us because it's.
No,
So, but it gave you a big picture of what they were working with.
Yeah.
Even though the policies are there, they're separate, but the buildings, even she described the buildings and what they had and the housing and how they took care, it was nice to know that they're not in, 10 women in one bathroom or something like that, in cells, they had rooms with windows, and it was very, you opened your eyes knowing what we have, but it was 50 years ago, so you can't compare 50 years ago facilities today.
I remember she described one of the older buildings as being a little Shawshanky. At one point. And walking around the campus with her and having her show, how it had evolved. And at one point, there was one of the old buildings which they were about to take down because everything was very active up there. And she gestured to the new facility. Oh, she pointed at the old building and she said, that was the warehouse. And then she pointed at the new one and she said, this is where we help people. And the fact that like the ideas that they were piloting on the women, they are now trying them on the men, and surprise, it's working. It was just, it's inspiring.
The many people that are there, like I never thought before, when they were babies, I mean, they just got sentenced and they got a baby, so they have breastfeed them and they have to get the milk to them. And it's just little things like that you don't think about.
There's a lot of stuff, yeah.
But you have to provide that service, which is great,
Right.
because everybody's got a different situation, why they got there in the first place. And,
I think,
We tried to hire her here, but.
Oh my God, it would be amazing. I
Yeah.
think she likes where she is.
I think the two things that stood out for me is one, I think is not a surprise, is that just because you have more beds doesn't mean that you're gonna try to fill them up. She was very, very strong about build it bigger. Make sure you've got plenty of space, plenty of beds, all of that, because it gives you the flexibility, and if you don't have that, it doesn't allow the success that she's had. And the other is just breaking the cycle of trauma that these women have faced, and trying to help them, so that it goes a lot with what I believe in is, if you come into the prison system an addict, you should go home not an addict. The same is with the trauma. If you come in there and you've never had a chance in your life ever to be separated from the trauma that's caused the behavior of where you're at, here's your perfect opportunity to come into a situation and work on yourself and come out of there a better person. And that's, as she says, we're building communities. And so to give those people the break, not the time just to sit there and reflect about how they messed up, but to help them make themselves a better person, and to address these things that you just don't go have a meeting and then go right back into the environment that you're trying to escape. You're there, and you can work on yourself and make yourself better. And I was kind of touched by that.
Go to work in the community, they had jobs. And never once did any of them escape. I mean, every one of them went to their job, worked wherever they were, brought them back at night or whatever the shift was, and they got to keep like 10% of the money or whatever, or they got 10%. They had to pay for room and board. It was well thought out.
Yeah, all of the women that I talked to in that facility were excited about what they were accomplishing, and I don't even know.
Oh, you went over there and visited?
Yeah, I've actually been twice.
Oh.
It's really, I got there also this past fall, I guess it was, when they had just completed their new regular correctional facility. I actually got to smell new cell block smell. It was one that it was like they were going to move in on Monday, and I even tried out one of the beds just to see. It was really neat to see what's changed. And if you go up to like Northwest here, you can see 3 or 4 different eras of design in the different sections, and what they got in Maine is what's next.
But there's no bars. They're all in rooms, right? I mean, there's fencing, I understand.
Yeah, I didn't see bars. I mean, the reentry.
There's no fencing in the reentry part of it.
Yeah. Have you ever been to like Champlain College, like the Maine Student Union? That's what it felt like. Maybe a little more sparse, but that kind of vibe. And then the regular cell block, I'll call it, or unit or pod or whatever, was a little more traditional in its layout, but it was softer, it was open, there was lots of light, and you weren't gonna. I mean, you find reasons to get sad because we are in prison, but definitely a much healthier environment. And a lot of that is just design. It doesn't cost a lot extra to make it that way.
Right.
It's just thinking that from the beginning when you do it.
Right, it could be even less expensive.
That's what she said.
Is what we found out.
Yeah.
Well, because they're building stick and lumber. I mean, the stick built versus heavy mortar and concrete and all that. So you've been there to see what the buildings are like. Who else has been? DOC's been there. Yeah.
I've got, I mean,
But department wise.
all the DOC folks up, Al Cormier and all the people you've seen giving testimony in here, they were on a tour, and from BPS, Joe Asia and Jennifer and all our, Tabrina, our team has all seen that, and our version of reality is not going to be exactly what theirs is, or theirs is not exactly Norway, but a Vermont version of something like that.
Has the union shown any interest as far as that process?
How's that?
Has a union shown any interest? The SEA shown any interest in that process?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
Well, why would they be?
Well,
I would think because they're building a structure to have to workers and all of that stuff, that they would wanna, have some interest in that.
I do know that workers are a major consideration in the design process, just in terms of, when you design the units, you're thinking about staffing every step of the way.
Exactly.
And that's another thing about like the reentry facility. I think they only have like 2 or 3 people on at a time on a shift, and I think they do the 12-hour shifts.
And it is
so-
vastly changing
Yeah.
the way that we do corrections.
Mhm.
So, you know, they might have to have some say in that at some point in time. I hope they decide that they want an interest in it. It would be nice.
It's interesting just through design how, you know, one of the big problems, like when we closed the Windsor facility, it was really hard to staff because there were all these blind spots and corners and there's that stairway to nowhere. It's like,
Built 100 years ago.
yeah, it was Winchester Mystery House. Right, so these new places, they now look at it and they go, okay, well, we're gonna have, you know, a mental health ward here and an infirmary here. And we can actually staff them both from a central spot and have one person watching both so that somebody could take a break or something like that, instead of having somebody, you know, way down the hall and, you know, so just in terms of deploying staff and making sure that it's a comfortable, happier environment for them. That's all part of the design too.
Well, then as the building aspects of it, of having a secure facility versus the reentry facility to be able to share the services, the kitchens, the, you know, all of that stuff right there. Just, I think that she had said, I can't remember the number, and but the difference between building a standalone facility versus building them together was I can't remember the number, but it was like 30% maybe,
Right.
or 40% cheaper to put those two together versus building a standalone.
Yeah, there's so much stuff you don't have to build twice, you know, even if you like build 2 different facilities, you'd have to have 2 different maintenance crews and 2 different sets of every piece of.
And a parking lot, I mean, people don't think that you put much money in a parking lot or a drive-in or anything like that. It all costs money.
Yeah.
Um,
And for Vermont, I mean, we're so small that even to build the most basic facility, we still have to build the big pieces, like the HVAC and all of the core pieces that our population, when you start to talk about the beds, it's almost like incidental. Because like the minimum core you would build could probably accommodate twice as many beds, but you have to have that much. It's almost like having a big power strip and plugging one iPhone into it. You still have to have the power strip to have the circuit breaker and all of that. But you know, when people get hung up on the bed count piece of it, it's kind of, I don't know, I feel, and I don't think I'd be contradicting any of the grown-ups, that it's missing the point. Because what we need is the right kind of bed so that we can take care of people. If someone comes into booking and their needs are, maybe they need to be observed for a couple of days before we figure out where they ought to be. Well, you need enough flexibility in the front office to make sure that people aren't being put in bad situations the minute they come in the door.
Yeah.
You know, it's a
Yeah,
continuum.
one size doesn't always fit all, right? So,
So
yeah.
that's why we need flexibility.
But kind of exciting to be thinking that, you know, the first major building since well, I think the last one that was built, was it Springfield or was it Northern State Correctional?
It might have been, Northern State feels a little newer, but I think it might have been Springfield,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah, so to be able to have your fingers in something like that I believe to be able to put a structure up like that, transformatively change the way that you do corrections is pretty exciting.
Agreed.
Yeah.
It's fun to work around this. I never thought I'd say that, you know, like, how am I suddenly really interested in corrections of all things?
Yeah.
But
That's why the day they left Windsor, I say, blow it up. I mean, and that was the worst. You know, they used to call the hole there, that's where you went.
yeah,
If you were bad, they put you there for 30, 60 days in a 2x2 cell with no light, no nothing. And you stayed there for weeks. And you know, and I remember those stories reading it. Just, oh God, what if you talk
I
about
thought you were
these little
speaking from
days.
experience there for a second.
No, I never went. I visited there when I was a young person to visit a friend there, and I just have some memories of that place. But when they got out of there, bomb it, do something with it. There was the thought of opening it back up. Remember?
Yep.
There's no way.
It works really well as housing. When I was with Wyndham Windsor Housing, I went and visited, yeah, and just,
Are they doing something with it?
yeah,
Oh, are
they turned it into affordable housing.
Oh, you mean the old,
Is
the
that what the one
downtown
you're
one?
talking about? Are you talking about those downtown one in Windsor?
The one with all where the
Yeah,
prison.
downtown one, not the
Yeah.
farm.
Yeah. Oh, I
Yeah.
was thinking of the farm as you were going. I was like,
No, it's great housing.
yeah,
Because
Pretty
it
cool.
does have, it's a historic building, it does have those, those little nooks and crannies are actually okay for housing.
Yeah.
Obviously not,
Sure.
right.
when you-
Privacy's good in
Yeah.
housing.
yeah.
So Eric, what else do you have for us?
No, it's just Friday and I'm really looking forward to next week. I know we're gonna come in and talk a little bit more about the energy office and what we do relative to that one and, yeah. Are you gonna, like, make a list of or you probably gonna list who's with what section?
We just got it. Would you like a copy of that?
Yeah, I'd love to see who gets what,
Yeah,
whenever it's done.
yeah, it's done now. I can do it like that right there. Yep, we can
Summarize.
do that.
Is there
And,
anything else I can do to help you guys?
Or can you tell us anything about where we are with the women's facility as far as anything like that without compromising any discussions as far as where you're at?
Where we're at is, I think, in another, probably early, not next week, but early the following week, I think HOK will be making a presentation and it'll be a pretty high level overview of what's.
Just maybe okay, just for the new committee.
Okay, HOK is the consulting firm that we hired. They're from Chicago, but they're based all over the place. And they are really, they impressed me anyway. Maybe that doesn't.
I think they're gonna be a lot like they impressed me too,
Yeah.
and not to take your thunder away from that, but I think it's a presentation a lot like what we heard as far as from Amanda.
Yeah, I mean, it's rooted in the same principles of treatment, and so they will take you through, they'll do a review of their previous report, which was the kind of the state of the union of our different facilities. In the last report, they made some recommendations about which ones we ought to keep and which ones we ought to sunset eventually, and then give a little bit of an overview of what a proper women's correctional facility and reentry facility ought to look like, talk a little bit about the services and the programming and what the spaces might look like. And then at the end of the month, I think the 28th, the full thick report, which I think will actually have some like conceptual floor plans and stuff like that, so you can really see what it would look like. One of the interesting things is it's about a football field worth of real estate just to string out all of the different services and pieces and make sure that everything connects properly, because they're looking at adjacencies of maintenance and kitchen and, if you go to therapy, but then you got to get past this. And so they've been playing a lot of, I don't know, those little games with the alphabet where you try and spell out a word on the tile, just moving the tiles around. They've been doing a lot of that and talking about, what's the appropriate space for different room sizes, how many people in a room, and then how many different types of rooms you need for different treatments or just little stuff like if you're housing two people who have a association that might have had something to do with the reason they're in there, or you want to be able to segregate people from each other who might be causing trouble for each other, and so why you have these different zones and how you time things, and it's really fascinating. I've sat in on maybe half of all of the meetings that they've had when they're arriving at these things, and so there's been a lot of input from DOC and from advocates. And
Did Hawk have anything to do with the main facility?
I beg your pardon?
Did Hawk have anything to do with the main facility at all?
I don't think that was their project,
Yep.
but they've done a lot of projects. They're going to bring in some imagery from other, like they just did a big one in Florida, and they work all over the country, and they actually, I think, are affiliated with people who do work in Canada and in Europe and stuff like that. So they're very state of the art in terms of.
What committee's gonna be involved in, we're just gonna be involved in the building part.
Right.
So what committee's gonna do all the acceptance of what you're putting into the building?
Well, I think we
We won't get involved in the program.
it's a building, yeah, I mean,
We were gonna get involved with the structure and what their plan is for the structure, but somewhere along the way, this is as much for the committee as anything.
But when it comes up, it's gotta be all laid
Brick
out.
and, basically brick and
Yeah,
mortar,
that's what I'm saying, so
that's
someone
where-
has to, what committees are going to do the basic work before it gets to us.
Well, I think, you know, this is still gonna come through the capital bill process, so I think, you know, House Corrections and Institutions
Yeah, They'll
has.
be involved more than we will. then.
Right, and I would think they would, I don't know how the various like health and welfare type committees of the two bodies are gonna weigh in, but I would be shocked if they didn't. They, you know, even in, I noticed like with the mental health facility in Essex, even if a committee wasn't formally involved, sometimes members would involve themselves, so I think I'm trying
So
to
if
stay.
it's here, for example, and we don't like where the bathrooms are, we have no jurisdiction over moving the bathrooms or something. The building will be presented to us as proposed, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's
Okay.
probably true.
No, I'm just,
Yeah.
that's what I'm asking, 'cause we haven't done this for a million years here, and I'm trying to.
No, and I've never been involved in
Yeah.
one this big. You know, I remember there were suggestions in Essex about the locations of a couple of walls and doors from members that were taken into
I know in
consideration.
Springfield, we had to give a lot to the community, I remember that, we built that one. The community had a want list about that long before they accepted it.
Yeah,
So
well,
that's gonna always happen.
the representative from Springfield was quite effective.
Yeah, well, that's what they wanted, highways, they wanted roads, and they wanted everything you can think of. And that's the other problem, of wherever you locate, there's gonna be a big wish list, if in fact they accept it. And the only place I know of today is St. Albans, which is really receptive to do, because they're prepared for it.
Right.
But the locate one, it's hell, I mean. and
Well, I think, yeah, that is still an outstanding question.
Yeah.
Although, you know, a lot of wind seems to be blowing in the direction of St. Albans. I don't think
Sure.
any decision has been made, and that's when I joke that BGS designs buildings as they're falling from the sky, because we don't always know exactly where they're gonna land.
Even the one in Burlington, where it is now, I remember the battle that went on for 2 years.
Before my time, sir.
Yeah, I was involved in that, I'll tell you, that was, oh my God, that went on and on and on and on, fighting and battling and everybody, you know, and that's back then. Today, you never.
So what did you do? Of course, the institutions was different at that time, but what did you do? You just kind of wait for them to wait out and wait through, and then once they figured all that out, it came?
There was a lot of battle outside this room.
Yeah.
Of location, that's where it is. It wasn't basically in here.
Right.
Right, conversation, there was 2 or 3 representatives, senators, and districts, and they, you know, opposed and against and everything else, so that's where you had the battle.
Yeah.
So it went on for a long time, because they were, if South Burlington didn't want it, they were supporting South Burlington, they didn't want it. And then if Milton, they were against it or whatever, they located. Every time you name a place, it takes a long time, planning and zoning. Oh my God. Even to remodel one, you go through the same hassle, because
Right.
you're starting all over again. They'll never be located in Burlington again. That'll never happen in that location.
I found a bunch of old correspondence when we were moving out of 2 Aiken, and it was, you know, copies of like letters from people in Windsor to Howard Dean saying, you don't want to put your prison here, and why don't you put it up in Chittenden County and all that, you know.
Controversial
So,
issue you'll ever
yeah,
go through it.
So it is, I mean, just looking at what our capital budget is and all that stuff, I mean, a lot of this isn't gonna be resolved in this biennium.
oh, no, no.
No.
Right, you know, in the current capital bill, there's like 12 or $14 million appropriated, but the reality is it's gonna be another 3, 4, well, I'm gonna get my years wrong, but it's gonna be a couple of years easy before we're anywhere near putting a shovel in the ground. And so the reason we start to put money in the bill now is because we can't possibly sustain the full cost
Right.
of it in a
So
single
those are
budget.
basically placeholder money.
We're accumulating authority. I always think of the capital bill as each one being like a fresh credit card, and you like keep it in your top drawer, and then you finally go, okay, it's time to do the thing. Okay, we're going to use our 2022 and our 2023 and our 20. Look, we've almost got enough to do it. Okay, if we can just have one more appropriation, but we'll start this year, and you know that's kind of the process. You accumulate authority, and then you can spend.
if you're gonna re-enter women or men back in the community with jobs, you gotta be near a place where they can work.
Mhm.
You can't put
Well-
a place up in some town that's got a population of 100 people. You
Right,
can't do that.
and for staff, right?
Yeah, that's the fact.
You
Yeah,
need-
that's
Well,
right.
and-
That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you said it.
So
Sound
you're
right.
gonna be,
Yeah.
that was the intent years ago of South Burlington, would be near the reentry problem for
Mhm.
the location, whether you go to hospitals, work, or whatever it is. That was the thought, and there was a men's facility that they moved the women there, but that was their intent to move the women there, if you recall, to get them back in the areas where they could work and get jobs, whether it's in the hospital or the.
Yeah.
We have all the service in Chittenden County, but it's saying Albans is pretty good for that, but you start going too far to small communities where you got land you can buy, you
Mhm.
can't do it.
Yeah, it's,
There's, like that lady said yesterday, they pick up within 10 minutes they're at their job, they had transportation.
Yeah, she said yesterday, she said, well, we asked her what, what would you have done different? Moved it 2 miles closer to the bus line.
Yeah, that's right. that's
Yeah.
right, that's
I
right.
mean, it's just something like that is, could make a whole decision as far as the
Now they gotta
process.
pay for transportation, they have to
Right.
hire a cab or something.
Right.
Right.
right, or make a on-demand ride deal with
Yeah,
GMC or whomever.
somebody,
Yeah, but
right.
that's definitely a
And they're different
consideration.
hours a day, because some work a night shift, they said, some
Yeah.
work,
Yeah.
day shift.
That was interesting. No,
It
she,
was,
she
no.
did a great job,
Yeah.
just off the
It
cuff.
opened my eyes
Yeah.
to a lot of stuff that we've never experienced in the past, it's just, but,
Well, she came by it honestly. I mean, I think she worked
No,
under
no,
the
yeah.
old system and worked really, that's probably why we can't hire her away, because she's just exhausted and she wants to enjoy things going right for her.
Exactly.
Yeah.
she must have went into this at a young age, because she said in high school, and she
Yeah.
referred to, she's been there like 10, 15 years
Well,
already there, so.
Good for her for not getting jaded with the process and understanding that there's a better way. And, that she was able to figure that out,
Yeah,
figure that out very well. She's a very impressive lady.
glad there are people like her in the world.
Yeah.
Better than me. Yeah, so I think you're gonna see a presentation in a couple of weeks, and then a report is gonna drop, and then there's gonna be, massive back and forth in the media, and it's gonna be a little bit of a zoo for a little bit, and people are gonna express themselves, and they're probably gonna focus on bed count, and that argument's gonna happen, and I don't know how to get people past that, but we keep trying.
She had the best answer for it, as I thought. I asked her point blank, does more beds mean more incarceration? She said, no. She's basically said more beds gives us more flexibility, because if you don't build it big enough, you can't ever realize what you're trying to accomplish. And she said, more space is better than less. And just because you have more rooms for beds, don't mean that you fill them.
No.
And so I thought that was very powerful. I thought that was a very powerful argument that she made. We're not doing this to punish more people. We need the size so we can help more people.
Yeah.
And wasn't a play on words. It wasn't trying to say, well, I'm gonna fill all the way to capacity. It was, no, we need the space so we can do better. So we can, Irene had asked the perfect question. What about some people that would want more space or would need more space? And she said, one of the things that stuck with me, and there was others, I'm sure, but she said, if somebody's been here for 30 years, hey, we're gonna give you a room for yourself, for the next year. And almost like a risk reward type thing. Or other people that are going through struggles that just need some time by themselves. I thought it was very, very powerful. Being incarcerated and having your freedoms taken away, sometimes it's punishment enough. The neat thing is that facility allowed for improvement in people's lives, which was very cool.
Did she talk about the honor dorm at all?
Yeah.
That was a great, I visited that a couple of times, and I actually went back and saw some of the same incarcerated, I want to say inmates, incarcerated individuals, and they were really proud of their space. This guy took me in and showed me how, these are my books, and I made this picture, and he's probably there forever.
They were all by themselves.
Yeah. You almost forget, if someone's there forever, there's probably something really bad that happened.
So have you been there to men's facilities as well, on
Yeah.
the same model up there?
Yeah, well, yeah, yes, it's not, yeah, I guess you could say it's the same model as the main model. It wasn't exactly like the women's facility, but like I said, they're trying now, bringing some of the women's programming into the men's facility, and it's working, so.
But the buildings that we would be involved with are a lot of the same with natural light and.
Yeah. Some of the men's ones I went into were older and a little more traditional, like if you've been to the sex offender unit up at Northwest, they were a little more like that, kind of a split level, open main area. Again, a little more like a college dorm than a prison. It really feels like a dorm. Yeah, so that was it was a great experience. Again, like saying, oh yeah, I went to prison, it was great, but it was. It's good for people. Yeah.
Just another time I'll just share the Springfield
Okay,
stuff,
yeah,
because
yeah.
they're actually doing some good things.
Yeah, it's tough though, you got the physical plant that you got.
Right, exactly.
Well, that's
So-
another thing we talked about. I mean, they have 107 in Chipstead, but it's 177 beds. And, but the facility just doesn't do the same thing. The facility, I know, but they have it
This
on
is
there.
because they transferred the gymnasium into beds and
Yeah,
that, because
right.
that was never built for 177 beds.
Right.
No, it was a detention
So
facility.
that's right, see, that, when I heard that yesterday, I said, wait a minute, I'm missing something, because I know they took the gym and put it all into beds. They put a lot of beds in there when it got crowded. So it's not built for
No, it's
177.
not.
So when I heard that statement yesterday, it lit up. Because
It kind of shocked me a little bit.
I
I
thought-
thought they were saying it was 177
I
bed
always thought it was around
facility.
110, something like that in the vicinity, because I remember one time, the women were 65 at one time, then they kept climbing, but it was never built for 177. That's because you bunked them in the gym.
Yeah.
And they put, I don't know how many they put in there. I gotta find that out.
It was built as the, the drunk tank and the short-term detention.
It was never built for
That's-
177.
All those people are going up to St. Albans now for the processing there, and that's part of the reason that they have so much more traffic in St. Albans, because they don't have the Chittenden intake anymore. So it's just,
a ton in the gymnasium. I know that they stacked them up, beds on all.
they've also
around.
built out some nice spaces for like mothers to be with their kids and stuff like that. They're definitely, it is what it is, but they're doing the best with what they got.
I wouldn't want to work there. That's a tough one. That's why they have a job. The port commissioner, he has a tough job. Getting help.
Well, I actually spoke with the guy at Newport, night before last, and he said they're doing better. So, but anyways.
Oh, yeah.
Anything,
In the news
Temperatures
too.
down.
anything else for Eric that he could share with us? Any questions?
I'm in enough trouble already.
Well, we thank you, Eric. We thank you for, without, just keep it within the realm of our committee and letting us know that. Committee, we had a good week. We got a lot done.
Yeah.
Proud of everybody. You got your sections signed. Just let me know what's going on, okay? I just don't want to get embarrassed by somebody coming up to me and telling me, hey,
Oh,
so just let me know what's going on. I use Eric as a resource. He's right there. If you have any questions about that, Eric's right there. He's offered his help. Yep.
What's our timing?
Oh,
Are we talking 2 weeks, or are we talking 2 months?
No, I apologize. I meant to tell you, I meant to tell you that.
I might have a lot of homework this weekend.
We are probably not looking to get this back until the first week in April at some time, which is not going to give us much time. So, and so again, and I've said it to Chair Emmons on the House side, I kind of feel for her a little bit because she's got some moving and shaking that's going to go on, and what she could spend the whole day on is going to be gone the next day, or what they could spend a whole week on could be gone the next day if all of a sudden our funds aren't there. So it's not going to hurt us to understand all the sections, and if you've got any questions and drilling on through.
A lot more people to talk to.
We got a lot more people to talk to.
Don't
So-
get involved yet.
So
No panic.
it's not a bad idea when you're going down through those sections, instead of doing it one-on-one, because we have a lot of time. So let's just get a hold of Linda, talk to me, let's get hold of Linda, let's get in front of the committee. We're gonna, you know, we're already having a little hard time to fill up some of our time to get there. So let's bring them into the committee process. Let's bring them in. But again, I'm not discouraging you from doing stuff out on your own and stuff, but you know, let's bring them in the committee so we can all be better at it.
Yeah, we have a lot of sections.
Sounds good.
Yeah,
We got a ton of sections.
yeah, we still have a lot of stuff. Yes.
Just from a date timing perspective, I think it usually comes across a week or two after crossover for all of the other bills. So the big money bills, this and the big bill kind of cross together, probably more importantly this year than any, because there are a lot of projects that span both. So look for, when you hear the big bills coming, this one's probably coming too.
And the cash component of it makes it a little bit more complicated.
Yeah. Gone from vanilla funding to Neapolitan, so.
All right.